Yeah, it took a long time to get through these calls. Of course, I listened to every single one of them, which doesn't help. All right. I want to watch the rest of this. This is the Dougie Town Hall. There's lots of good information in this.
So just to summarize, most of those we heard from did agree that disruptive riders were the biggest safety concern and broadly agree on 3 approaches. First, the creation of a crisis intervention team that would be comprised of people who had specialties in dealing with people in mental health crisis and those experiencing drug or alcohol issues. Second, providing TRIMET staff with training on de-escalation and mental health issues. And third, an increased presence of TRIMET staff on board and at stations, though, again, there was some disagreement about which staff types are most effective. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to John. Thank you all.
All right, and I think we're going to switch back to the primary PowerPoint, and I'll walk you through the end. Jeff, reload that. Okay, so I think this was said along the way, but I want to sort of reinforce this idea that we began this conversation during a very critical time in our community, and some of those conversations still happening are unsettled. But we understood that.
Look at this, the Governor's Racial Justice Council. I mean, they have all the little names and doodads and all the little nice, they say it all. Oh, we're so good. Look at us, government. We're so good. We have this and that and the other, and the exact opposite is the truth.
This was not happening. Our efforts were not happening in a vacuum. And as we're focused on public safety on transit, we know there's a larger conversation happening with Reimagine Oregon across many different areas of the community, as there is a statewide conversation being led by the governor with her Racial Justice Council. Next slide, please.
And it's all smoke and mirrors. You know that, right? It's all smoke and mirrors.
But still, we gathered a group of experts, both local.
And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The experts are exactly the wrong people to listen to, but they don't care because they run the show, and people like me and you out there, we just watch. We don't have any say in any of it.
Thought leaders and national to really inform, sort of given everything that we've collected, all the.
None of these people are my thought leaders. None of them. Not Trump, not Biden, not John Gardner, not Kelsey, not Kate Brown, not Ted Wheeler. Nobody is my thought leader here, okay? I want to make that clear. These people are the enemies of people like me. They don't lead anything.
Information, all the research, all the feedback. How should we move forward with this $1.8 million? Recognizing that folks are raw and temperatures are high, we wanted to pull together a regional committee to serve as a sounding board to develop final recommendations for our leadership to consider.
Yeah, and I heard they had the Secret Society met today. The Secret Society is the board, and I wrote a letter to them last month about them not putting their meetings up on Twitter. And as you can see, that letter went where all the other testimonies went, right into the trash can. They don't care about what I think or anybody else. It doesn't matter what we say or do. They're going to do it their way. Anyway, the point I'm making is that Tristan Isaac made a comment on the Twitter that they want to add more police. Okay, after all of this, they want to add more police, which is the exact opposite of what the community wants. But that's why I think Trump should win, because the public should get the exact opposite of what they want on every single level of our lives. TRIMET is giving us the exact opposite of what we want, and I think that Trump should give us his president. We don't want him, so the leaders should give it to. They like to show us that we have no power. They like to show us over and over and over again that we have no power.
To sort of move this work forward. Next slide, please. We feel really good about the folks we ultimately were able to bring together in terms of who they represented and having a tri-county presence. We were able to partner with Marcus Mundy from the Coalition of Communities of Color, Joe McFerrin from Rosemary Anderson High Schools, Anthony Deloney from Self-Enhancement Incorporated, Patricia Daniels from Constructing Hope, Dan Campbell from Disability Rights Oregon, who's also the CAP leader, Kevin Modica, who's a retired transit police commander, Kenichi Oniyagushu, who's with Professional Builders Development Group, Deshaun Hardy with Highland African American Youth Coalition, Lakanya Drury with
These are all people from the executive class these are all executives of the various organizations here. I mean, what's Bev Scott doing there? And her buddy Kelsey wanted to give her some money, so they said, "Here, Bev, we'll pay for your plane ticket and give you 20 grand for a day's work."
Word is Bond, Lauren Cohen with Cascadia Behavioral Health, and Jackie Irby with Basic Rights Oregon, Jonathan Colon from Central Cultural, Dr. Beverly Scott, who's a former transit system general manager at I believe, over 4 properties, Holly Hansen from
she got fired
American
from the
Public
last one.
Transportation Association, Emily Nelson from Join, and Kim Coda from the Clackamas Developmental Disability Services Group. Next slide.
I don't know who they are, but notice the total lack of any actual real people that don't have little position titles.
We ran this group of folks through a pretty intense process over the course of 4 weeks and 14 hours of meetings with over 500 pages of research and information for them to sort of dive into to prepare them and provide them a baseline.
I'm watching the
before you can offer
bullshit.
recommendations. You really need to understand how the system currently operates. And that's what we did. And we had incredible, thoughtful conversations, all of which were Zoomed and all of which we'll make available on.
They all got to do it from home. All these great executives, they all work from home, 6-figure salaries. They all get to stay home now and get their six.
They put a shirt on and they're naked from the waist down.
Some of them are masturbating. Remember that? Some guy got caught doing that on
our current Reimagining webpage, just so folks can see the context and the depth of those conversations.
They caught him
Next slide,
masturbating and forgot to turn his camera off.
Some guys.
And the investment themes, both from the stakeholders who responded to online surveys to the focus groups and our staff,
Needless to say, he got fired.
really center around issues of presence on the system, the idea.
Of course, these people are criminals, man. None of these are all criminals. These are low.
He lays down on the bed and opens his pants, and there's a hooker there that's all on camera.
Yeah,
For
Giuliani.
a crisis response team, infrastructure improvements, more and deeper community partnerships, greater outreach and communication and reporting systems, and leveraging technology.
Trump was foisted on us, and we're stuck with him.
I want a front row seat when they drag him out.
They're not going to. He'll leave, I imagine. Maybe he'll figure out a way to stay in office. I'm hoping he does.
He'll probably figure out. He'll probably hold it captive, man. We'll have to fucking blow half the White House apart to get him out, you know.
And we put those investment themes to the committee, and we asked them to rank the priorities they felt, given everything they now know, TRIMET should pursue. Next slide, please.
All right.
And their priorities were essentially focusing on the training in anti-racism or cultural competency and mental health.
They're going to train in anti-racism. Let me tell you something. Okay, I happen to be sitting with a black person right this minute. Can you train somebody to be an anti-racist? No. There you go. I mean, if you're a racist, you're a racist. Okay.
Well, it's a pretty hard thing to defend too.
Yeah, you can't really train somebody. If you grow up and you're a racist and you're an adult, it's pretty rare for somebody to change their point of view once they're an adult. You know,
no one wants to admit they're racist.
Of course not. Well, some people do. I mean,
the only way you can change a racist is to change their heart.
Yeah, but I don't know how easy that is. You're not going to do that through a bureaucracy.
De-escalation for TRIMET employees.
Okay.
They also wanted us to continue to pursue or develop ideas related to a crisis intervention team.
I don't know what they're talking about with this crisis intervention team. Put the goddamn guardian angels back on the trains and the buses, okay, like they used to have them. I don't know what the crisis. What are they going to do? I mean, you're having a behavior problem on a 57 in Forest Grove. Is the team going to be able to get out there from wherever the hell they are?
Trained to deal with folks experiencing behavioral or mental health crisis on the system. And their third most mentioned priority was more unarmed TRIMET presence on the system, followed closely by some sort of community partnership for rider education or rider ambassadors, as well as infrastructure improvements. Next slide.
So detached from what
so
this guy here?
Where we landed with the committee, what they forwarded on to leadership was
with no street. What do they call it? Street credit.
Yeah. Okay, that's somebody who doesn't know anything about TRIMET or any of this, and he's making that comment. Just listening to him. Okay. Yeah, he's pretty useless.
Talking out of his ass.
Yeah.
the number one priority is investing in training for TRIMET staff. Again, in issues for anti-racism, cultural competency, mental health, and de-escalation. Their second most...
tell people, just tell your drivers to just drive. Can you...
De-escalator right here.
Yeah, just tell them to you just drive, man.
Recommended priority was increasing presence of TRIMET personnel and unarmed safety presence on the system. And the final recommendation for the use of this initial pilot pool of investment was the further development of a crisis.
This guy's making like $200,000
trained to deal and support those in mental health crisis or experiencing other behavioral health on the system. Next slide. But of course, there were a lot more other ideas. Closely behind and things that the leadership is still looking through are the recommendations that weren't the primary, but also talked about making sure the infrastructure was strong in terms of cleanliness and lighting and just other things we can do to make sure the system itself is safe from an infrastructure standpoint. They also wanted us to continue to look towards public messaging campaigns, making sure our riders understand the rules for riding and they know their role in helping us keep the system safe. There are actually some really good ideas related to software and new safety systems like e-alerts or using our app technology better, and other additional
ideas not going to help.
Is currently considering as part of what they'll be taking to leadership.
Leadership is the problem.
So in terms of where we're at next step, these recommendations were given to the TRIMET leadership team last Friday, and they've been working on them this week to get ready for next week's board retreat.
I can't wait to hear the retreat. The TRIMET Transparency Center says it's 72 hours before that. I can put them right up immediately. Some guy sitting in a room can put up a video of a conference in 1 hour. It takes them 3 days.
Retreat, where we'll be able to provide a much more thorough presentation to the board about the entire process, but also all the feedback that many of you have seen today, as well as sort of the recommendations for moving forward. The idea that after the board and leadership agree on a path forward, we'll communicate to all the program stakeholders. Obviously, earlier you saw thousands of people participated in this, and so we want to make sure everybody knows what we're going to be doing moving forward. There's already been some general thoughts around establishing a new committee or reconstituting our current safety committee to focus on these and other efforts moving forward. And then I think related to where we land as a leadership team and a board, we'll build out a calendar and a staffing plan for the work moving forward. Next slide, please. So it goes without saying that in addition to the folks you heard on this call, dozens of TRIMET employees work behind the scenes to do all the work. From research.
Look at this. Look at that. Oh my God. Look at all of these bureaucrats, man. All of these people work from home now. Wow. All six-figure people. Unbelievable. The blue ribbon panel process. The blue ribbon. Oh my God. It's just a fucking joke, man. Oh my God.
Working to outreach to sort of going above and beyond their current work to make room for this project in their schedule over the last 4 months.
I'm sure you're so busy since you get to stay home your whole life now.
Especially those project area leads like Nathan Jones, Carl Green, Scott Nance,
who knows who they are,
who did the heavy lifting, all of which was kicked off
get the cheer
our general manager's commitment to this work earlier in June. And so we're excited to see what happens next.
I'm sure you are.
Next slide, please. And we're open and available to answer any questions. So I'll just turn it back to Deanne. Thank you.
All right.
So I think Deanne, we're gonna I think John and to the whole team here, for those who are watching, some of you may have hopefully been even participating in this. This is probably the most extensive outreach that this agency's ever done. In fact, based on feedback even from some of the national participants, I think they've even indicated this is the most extensive outreach anyone in the country has done.
Yeah, right. Sure.
So we're kind of over our skis a bit.
Let's get the cheer.
We've been moving very, very fast. I think some of the feedback, even when I started reviewing the document, is like when you print it off, it's like about a 6-inch document. But looking through it all last weekend in detail, there's some great nuggets in here, not only at the high level, but even at the smaller level. TRIMET should be proud of what we have done. but we're still on the taking the journey spectrum. We have lots of work to do. Like everybody else, just like your household, we have to balance our checkbook. We got a lot of hungry mouths of ideas out there across the agency on this topic, but as well as all others. So this is one that's going to take a lot of focus. There's some cultural changes that are going to have to go on.
The great job they're always
help us build new bandwidth here. And so we're going to want to return on that investment. So I think there's a significant undertaking that is to come. So this kind of lays the groundwork of what's the data say, our research,
I know.
DHM and other partners, our employees provide some great helpful feedback, as well as our customers. So we are part of the village in this region, but this really could not have happened without this group of, there's about 50 people in here, the Fab 50, who've done an immense amount of work over an extremely short period of time. If we look at even Commissioner Hardesty and others in the city of Portland, they've even, where they said, we're going to make changes and quick. They've now extended theirs by like a year. What we have done, some people even made comments that it was hard, it was short, the trade-offs are short, but they were really grateful we were pushing the edge and moving fast. So one thing I learned in my own career is, which I had never thought was, you can be strategic and fast. And I think this is a model that actually shows that. So just a giant kudos. But now, so we haven't got to all the recommendations. You've seen some high-level ones, but there's a lot more to come next week that we're going to review with the board in a lot more wholesomeness and totality.
He's the head guy.
You want to get them to
the other guy works for this guy.
So with that, and our time available, it's 10:43 right now on my clock. Let's move Deanne to questions on this topic, and then any time available, I'm not sure we'll have it, then I'll move to broader open talk. So over to you, Deanne, for questions.
All right, sounds great. So just so you know, too, we're definitely getting comments in on the chat box just saying, great job, team. Just, all of the work that you did, etc. People are just really impressed with your effort and the results. So questions. There's a lot of topics to be covered in terms of training. Would the training only apply to TRIMET staff, or would it also be required for contractors, including police officers and unarmed security?
Call and hang out.
Okay.
Let me jump in on this one. So my belief is it's going to have to be beyond TRIMET staff. It's going to have to envision, we have to like this whole apple all at once. This is a big apple. But I'd rather undersell and overdeliver. And that is very important.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
Yeah, let me watch this.
Talked like that to the
I've only got 15
advisory panel on their last night. And they did a great job, by the way. They really did, helping us. So I think it has to be foundational. If you want to play with TRIMET, you're going to have to play with TRIMET. And so we're going to need to review how we up that standard for our contractors as well. So how we get there, I think that's going to take some time. But I think we have to get to bias training, to conflict resolution, to those kind of conversations that have not happened, as opposed to we hire, they show up and do their part. So we're going to have to evolve in that sophistication ourselves. So it's going to take some time.
Yeah, government, you can trust government to do the right thing.
So another question about, did the committee explain why they think TRIMET staff, rather than safety and security personnel, needed the anti-bias, mental health, etc. types of training?
Yeah, so what I would say is that they realize that at the end of the day, our staff are out there every day doing the heavy lifting of making sure the system is safe and folks are getting where they need to be. So that would be the best investment, is to first start with ourselves, recognizing that obviously our partners and our peers and whatnot need that training as well, but they wanted us to focus on ourselves in terms of what we can control.
Okay. Question about the crisis intervention teams. Who is supposed to make the call on whether a crisis intervention or a police response is required for a certain situation? Would it be left to the operators? And what if they make a wrong call and a real emergency occurs on the system?
So let's get one thing straight right now. There is no actual emergency response. I just got through. Let me. Okay, I can play it right now because I just got done spending the last 4 hours listening to dispatch calls. And you know, when you want to talk about safety, let me see here. Let me show you. Listen.
Were you wanting to press charges against the person? Absolutely. Okay. You will have to do a police report.
All right, I'm not going to play this whole thing. This is more involved than. Anyway, he was had a problem with a rider, and the police never showed up. I mean, when you need them, they're never there. Okay, so the whole idea that somehow the police, the way it's set up, is working is wrong. They're not there when you need them. They never have been. Even when I worked there, they weren't. They were never there when you needed them. I don't know where they are, but they're not on the system most of it. Occasionally you see them in a transit center, occasionally, but most of the time you don't see them anywhere.
What I would say to that, and Doug can correct me, but I think the language you'll see is if that's a recommendation going forward, there's a lot of work to develop it. And there are some existing models that we can learn from, but obviously trying to localize that.
A crisis team by a transit agency? No. What you just need is a rider advocate program, full blown, a lot of people riding around on the system, helping when things go bad. That's all they need. It's very simple. You don't need a blue ribbon committee. Anybody who follows, a little blogger hobbyist like me can tell them what to do. Light Rail Angels. Remember that? There was a Twitter, Arizona Light Rail Angels. They had volunteers going around helping homeless people on the system. I don't know what happened to them. I think they got inactive. Well, I'm sure they're inactive now, but
across the Tri-County area, and then develop.
And all of this talk is kind of moot now. I mean, with the COVID and all of this nonsense, I mean, I don't really see what they think they're going to do. I mean, you can't even run your systems efficiently. I just got through. There were 3 bus bridges at once happening. You don't even have a system that runs efficiently, and here you are talking about all this other shit that doesn't matter. This is all window dressing fake. This is all fake out shit.
Developing the standard operating procedures. There's a lot of work ahead of us to sort of figure those questions out.
Yeah, I'm going to phone a friend here using an old game show, and I think Marla, if you're on the line, she has some great experiences here in other markets as well that can help us. The one thing that if Marla is available in there she is. Before she clicks on though, is we're all citizens, me too, right? And we probably all felt uncomfortable, whether it be on a street or on a train.
Marla looks like shit.
Transit system, right? And so we have to use our wits about things can go from great to bad in a heartbeat, right? Mm-hmm. I just saw one here in front of my house where 5 officers literally showed up yesterday on something. So I think we need the tool. So if you have like a 911 model, right? If you call in right now as a citizen, it's like, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's like ambulance, fire, police. We need to unbundle that with our partners to get to, is it mental health? Maybe we have to put that in the queue as part of our triaging, because so many things land at the police's lap, I think is so unfair. We have a lot of calls. In fact, Marla just gave us an example yesterday of 10 calls where police were required. So we need to get into, some of this is about the what. Now we've got to move into the unbundling, if assuming the board all supports what we're trying to do here, and get into the how over what time. So there's a lot of work to do, but even it starts at the 911 kinds of relationship of who does externally to the customer and calling out. So everybody can help us in delineating to try and get right resources at right time for right response. So Marla, any thoughts for you on this?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What we do is have established relationships with our dispatch partners, and we'll be working with our transit police and our OCC to actually craft out all of those operating procedures. So
she took Harry Supporter's job.
It wouldn't be left to the bus operator to determine who to call, but the bus operator can make the call, and then other staff will help run through what is the true call out or what is the deployment response that we actually need.
Yeah. Our police, we contract police. We're not in the policing business. It's not a personal core competency of the agency. And I've worked in agencies where we did have direct police that we hired and such. So there's a great model that already exists here that through our contract police. Is there work they need to do on some of their training? No question. That's part of evolving police security and safety in what all we do. But if I look at this, there's a lot of calls police respond to, frankly, today they should not be responding to. I don't think they want to respond to them. So I think
he's right. He's right. Yeah, that one he's right. You hit the nail on the head on that one. We know that to be true.
It's a bit. My parents were teachers and educators, and a lot of our society turned over our children to say, "Go raise my kid." And so I think we've been asking, like in police, we've asked them to do too much.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I think we have to help them with some of these future investments.
Yes, you need a guardian angels type program for the 100th time, which you had at one time, and you just continued it.
To skinny down, what are they really needed and what are their competencies needed, including the law that supports it. But there's many times they're just not needed, and they don't want to be there. No. And so I think there's some...
They're not interested in fair disputes. They're not interested in people doing these minor infractions, like they don't break down the wagon, or they're having a sip of beer on the bus. They don't want to be bothered with that. And they only should be called when there's a life-threatening, when there's a threat to actual life and limb.
What these mechanisms are, I think, are going to take some time. And every call is probably not going to get it right, but still the backing, when police are needed, they still need to respond. Because they, in fact, have the law behind them. The goal is not to have to need the law, but sometimes you do. So I think part of that is working through that, the mechanisms and the triggers that try and get the right resource to right place, right time.
All right, we do have a couple of questions about the transportation measure, so love to ask those. One question said that the opposition to the measure marketed it as a payroll tax, giving the impression that it would come out of employees' salaries and misleading the public. That being said, now that this measure did not pass, could it have an impact on the open positions at TRIMET?
Well, the answer is yes. I think I think we kind of go to what does it mean for me naturally. So the ballot has failed, whether both sides had the right to communicate in the ways and invest the way they wanted to, but ultimately democracy has played itself out with a no vote. And so there are impacts on that for an agency such as ours. So we've had a really talented team doing a lot of great work on the Southwest Corridor.
Oh,
as I said in the opening comment.
Yeah, only a government can do what they did. They put the cart before the horse, spent who knows how many millions. It's got to be over $100 million on this. All made people money. They had all these unnecessary jobs that all were completely a waste of time. This is government in action, okay? This is like build the wall. That's exactly what this is. They built the wall. And nobody needed the wall, and nobody needed this. It's the same exact thing. Do you understand? It's the same exact principle.
That project is now ending. So we're going to finish up the Metro grant.
Of course, notice how he hasn't said anything about any staff being laid off from that. He hasn't said a word about anybody losing their job as a result of that referendum. And nobody in that department will get laid off. They'll cut service, but they're not going to cut off that capital projects department. Capital projects owns TRIMET. They run public policy there. We had
of $60-something million. We're stair-stepping it down, so there will be resource impacts downwards. On Southwest Corridor, let alone some of the other positions. We're already in a hiring freeze except for non-essential roles that I personally review every single ask that comes in.
Yeah, we've seen your hiring freeze. You're getting they're hiring lots of people. Okay, lots of people, all kinds of other shit. The only people they should be hiring are bus operators. That's one thing they're not hiring. I guess they finally took the freeze off on that.
In fact, I had one just came through while we're on this forum today. So yes, there will be impact, particularly on the expansion side of it. I don't want to stop there though, because it's not just the ballot. There's also the fact things like Columbia Bus Base, the fundamental demand. When we're down 50% in ridership, that has impacts on the speed of expansion and when the need of dollars for capital and other programs that come with it. So there's a lot less right.
All capital projects should be off the board. I mean, it's all very simple stuff, but we have these criminals in charge here that are making decisions based upon their cronyism versus what the public needs.
Ridership out there, and we're going to see less capital going out the door for the most part. Division Transit will continue.
Yeah,
I'm optimistic, particularly with the election of the President-elect Biden going in. I'd be a lot more cautious and concerned if the existing President Trump stayed in power, particularly around the expansion of the Red Line project that we're looking at. So I feel that one's probably way more in play now around expansion. But to the ballot itself, anything related to it is...
Biden will definitely be more friendly to transportation districts, no doubt about that.
Now stopped. And with that comes contractors work, consultants work, employees expansion work, et cetera, all the way through the pipeline.
Okay. And another question about the measure, will TRIMET, with the measure not passing, will TRIMET evaluate alternatives to the Southwest Corridor project at a high level? For example, this employee is asking if we could run bus only or bus priority lanes maybe down Southwest Barber Boulevard and achieve similar outcomes as the Southwest Corridor rail line.
Yeah, that's a good question. Anytime, I always think, there's been so much work been done, and in the 2040 plan, this corridor has been identified as a rapid transit corridor. So there's been a lot of work and investment done to get to this point, saying and indicating it was light rail. Right now, with the failure of the ballot, and particularly Southwest Corridor, I think the person writing it is focusing on, that was $975 million of the ballot. So if we'd had that, we'd had a serious chip in the game of regional investment to say, let's go make this happen to the state level, let alone ultimately to the Fed level, but you kind of got to do that in order. So without the $975 million chip, we're not spending any time on it right now in alternatives analysis. I think the public has spoken. They're not prepared to invest right now in it, which we're going to need regardless. So for me, it's tools down on the evaluation for some time, including any alternatives. But there was a lot of work done to get to light rapid transit. The project was an expensive project at $3 billion. So we're going to have to look at and find out what our community partners have an interest in doing. So I think at the right time, we will reconnect.
Nobody should be expanding. Simple logic, but we the people don't get to decide.
With some of our community partner leadership and investors of this project and find out what their interests are. But we're not going to spend any time on it for a while.
Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Here. I just wanted to let you all know something.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. We're going to have to hold on just a minute here. Guess who's here? Guess who's here? We need to talk.
I've kind of spoiled myself.
You know who this guy is?
When I went and did those collaborations with Among Us and with Phasmophobia, because when I did those, and GTA 5, of course. When I did those, obviously I enjoyed it so fucking much. I love being able to collab with other people.
All right, that there is the former @Rump Roast, aka the Criminal Violin, who has decided to bail on Twitter. He's gone. He's left us. He's left me. Every time somebody leaves the TriMet Twitter, I take it personally. But I'm still in contact with him, and we still talk.
We don't have any more chat box questions, so an advanced question that came in was, is there an update on the hunt for the new CIO?
The hunt. Okay. I'm going to use a different word called recruitment, but we can call it the hunt. The only update I can give you is, and not a surprise, is we have a very strong application amount, something over 90 applications that have come in for it at this point in time. So it's well over 90.
What's CIO?
Sam and team, Sam DeSue that is, are working through the process, and just like any recruitment process, but I'm optimistic that there's clearly a lot of interest in this role, and a really important role for the agency.
Chief Information Officer, right? Another wasteful bullshit position.
That's all we have right now. I haven't seen any applications personally. I'm not getting involved in it. I'll participate in the interview process like others, our normal process, particularly at the back end. So stay tuned.
Okay. Another advanced question that we got is, are we training operators again?
Good question. Yeah, so the answer was no, but the answer now is yes. We did because of COVID for a bunch of reasons there. And also, remember, we also reduced our service down significantly on the bus side by about 20% and about 10% on the rail side. So
it was 8%. Liar.
The fundamental need of the really important and talented operator pool was less because they're actually delivering less service. So now that we put 10% back in.
And they still are begging for operators whenever anything goes wrong. They beg them to work. They don't have enough operators, okay? So he's lying as usual. I mean, when you have a cult of self-involved criminals running your public policy, the first thing that gets cut is the actual people. Because TRIMET runs for the advantage of him and him and him. All these six-figure executives are what TRIMET really exists for. You know, they have buses out on the road, but that is not the priority. We know that government doesn't serve the needs of the people. We know that, okay? On any level. Yeah, they have buses and trains, but they're, it's a skeleton crew. They spend as least amount of money as possible on that. And as much as money as they can steal for the other purposes, capital projects, consultant contracts, they do all of that. That's what they want, is the money to go to the crony capitalists. Every penny they don't spend on service goes to the crony capitalists.
On the bus side in September, we have reactivated training, and part of every training class is all the COVID practices that got to come with it. So the answer is yes, and that's now getting underway as we speak.
Okay. What is the latest on the I-5 bridge project?
Oh, yeah, let's hear this.
I-5 bridge project, that's a good question. It's actually going to get interesting with I-5 bridge project. So for those who are new to the region, this is the re-phoenixing of the old CRC project, which actually Steve Witter was highly involved with, and some others in this agency. So it is now...
That was like $250 million down the drain on that one. Nobody said a word, because this is standard operating procedure. Government steals your tax money.
Now underway. So about a year ago, I participated actually in the press conference with the two governors, Inslee on the Washington State side and Governor Kate Brown, both joining hands, signing a protocol to say we are going to go re-look at this I-5 bridge. There is a problem to solve, clearly, right? So, and now there's a new run at this. So I
was under the impression that this is a federal issue. That these interstates are federal. So I'm not sure why the governors are even involved with it at all. I mean, I think the federal government can just come in and do it. I don't understand why there's a problem here at all.
I've been asked to be on the executive steering committee for it. So we had a meeting just last week on it. And so it's underway right now. The two dots, what that means is WashDOT, Washington State Department of Transportation, and Oregon, or ODOT's Department of Transportation. They are the two agencies joint leads on it. And there's been an immense amount of work that's been going on behind the scenes to get ready. And we basically just had some of our first kickoff meetings related to it in the public this week or late last week.
More money.
It's underway. It's being taken very seriously for all the right reasons, because it's a serious problem to solve.
Yeah.
All right. And last question. Can you update?
Oh, I should add on to that. It's right, Deanne, those who asked the question. There is also a subgroup that we're working on. TRIMET is front and center on with our partners at CTRAN, with ODOT, WashDOT, working specifically on under the I-5 bridge component. What should the rapid transit element look like? So that's a piece of separate work which will feed into it, because if you remember back in time, that was one of the key reasons, I think there's a few, why the whole project failed under the CRC structure. So I think people are taking more care and diligent time to learn from the last one, including the data, and then overlaying what should that look like. So TRIMET's going to be heavily involved in that with our other partners. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. You know, we're at just like a minute till 11. So to respect people's time, maybe we end it there. We have the other question for the next town hall. So I will send it back to you, Doug.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And just as those writing in wrote, reflecting how we all feel, to this whole team, this I call the Fab 50, you guys done a great job on this. We are going to present this next week to the board and get them to opine on it and set a new direction. This will then have to feed into the broader business plan, the broader budget capabilities, and the financial limitations we have. Spending money is not a problem, but it's like our household. We still have to balance our budget. So this will have to be kept in context with all the other interests and demands of the agency, particularly at a time when revenues are way down, ridership's down about 50%. So we're trying to look at short, medium, and long as we position this agency, of which this is going to be a really important part. So people feel welcome. Next time. So next town hall, Thursday, December 3rd, 2 p.m. Next one, not a surprise. We're going to focus on the budget process that's coming up. And boy, we have the best experts going. We have Dee Brookshire and Nancy Young-Oliver, and as well as Allison Langton, who never gets enough credit in this agency because she is a giant machine behind the scenes. So stay tuned for that. Please bring your questions on any topics related to it. It is now 11 o'clock. Everybody be safe. Have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy...
Go away. All right, here's our buddy.
There's an inherent issue with that, though, because that basically...
Okay, that's a wrap. You know how I feel about all of this, man. It's all window dressing. It's all public relations. You know, nothing is going to change. It never has changed. I started there in 1996, 95. When was it? It was 1995. Okay, 2000. That's quite a long time ago. And I'm listening to the calls to this very day, and it's all the same. Nothing ever changes there. And I bet you nothing ever will. All of this talk of these talking heads, these six-figure talking heads who sit at home and don't really know anything about the public at all. They don't interact with the public. They're elites. All this is just talk that goes nowhere, and it's just a waste of our tax money, really. And I'll say it again for the last time. All you need to do is bring back the guardian angels, problem solved.